Hello to week 8 of posting weekly. So almost 2 months. In fact, this is 2 months exactly. Been kind of an interesting ride. You know, when you start these channels, you have a concept in mind. And for me, that concept was to do everything analog. And my thoughts on that were that when you shoot analog film and you're behind the camera, you have to be much more aware of what the camera is doing because I like the interaction with the camera more than the final output that looks like film, because quite honestly, you can make the digital look like film in today's world. So I thought this would be great. I will shoot everything analog. I will have to be involved in the entire process. And a lot of what I love about analog photography is that it draws you into the moment of what you're seeing as much as what you're doing. So when I'm using a camera like this, very much needs a lot of attention before you take the picture, and working with this, because I find that if I don't do that part, I don't really engage in the subject matter. And so I guess you would think of it this way: in this kind of camera, you think about, here's the scene that I see. Now I need to think about what's my lighting situation, what's the aperture going to be, what's my depth of field going to be. Depending on what film I have in here, that's a limitation. And then finally, after you focus and get everything all set, you then kind of do your final framing and take the picture. So there's a lot that goes on, and that may all happen within a couple of seconds. Where when you shoot with a fully automatic camera, it doesn't seem to work quite that way. It's more, let's say you're working on something very simple like this, a point and shoot. It's more, take a picture, take another picture, kind of frame it. It's going to be perfect. This has a process, technical stuff, composition. That has the opposite process. Slight composition, shoot it a bunch of times, different compositions, edit later and select later and do everything while I'm sitting here in the office with the computers going. And it's the same thing, kind of, whether you're doing that with a still camera like that, a Super 8 even is kind of the same thing. This is designed to be automatic, and it barely works, quite honestly, when you flip it over to manual. This interaction where I'm looking at the cameras and talking to them, I was going to do on Super 8. And what I found out was that because of the length of time that these things record, I wanted to script everything because you only have so much time. And what that meant is I rehearsed and rehearsed, used a teleprompter, and it didn't feel authentic. I felt like I was a news guy, almost like sitting here reading what I had written earlier. And after doing this once, I decided this wasn't going to work. So then I moved to this. And this is a VHS X. This is a Sony Hi8, like a VHS. It's got a small tape in it. It's analog. I get the benefit of it actually looking analog, because this is much dirtier, much what you consider analog today, than a Super 8. It had everything you wanted. But again, the problem with it is that it's mainly set up to be automatic. And when you're using this camera out and about, you kind of use it like it's a Super 8 on auto. This really looks much more at the end like Super 8 footage than Super 8 footage looks like. So I thought, yeah, this will work. And really what I found was, again, because you have to run them on automatic, is you're not engaged with the process of filmmaking at this point. So I needed to come up with a solution. And over the 8 weeks, I've been thinking and trying to plan and come up with ideas on how I might make it more interactive. Because the reason that I thought I was going all analog was not because I wanted all analog. It was I wanted the interaction with the camera and then with how the images looked to be more important. than just setting cameras up and talking to it. I know that when I shoot with my Cine cameras, I am engaged with the process. And I decided then that what I would do is go back to using them. And I tried it once, it worked out good. And in my case, I don't use automatic lenses on there. I use these old FD lenses. They have old style stops for your f-stops and their manual focus. So you're really engaged in the process compared to what I was with the actual analog cameras. And that's ultimately what I find interesting with photography or film. So that meant the change. I needed to go to digital for the behind the scenes and the talking to the camera part. What I have started doing for my commercial work, and I think I'm going to run into this channel as well, is this. And what this is a digital camera. This happens to be a Fujifilm GFX with a Hasselblad V series lens on it. It's, focus is manual. You use the f-stops here. The adapter is really, I guess, what you would call stupid. It just, goes from here to there. And what this does is it takes this camera and makes it very manual. I can still review. I can still do all of the stuff this camera can do. But the reality is, if you use this camera on manual, you turn knobs, you engage. And what I'm finding is that for my commercial work as well, I spend much more time now engaging in the process of not just taking the picture, but of what the picture is about. And I think I want to introduce this into this channel as well. So what does that mean for a channel that was started really with the whole intention of it being 100% analog, even the name, Analog Film Only? Well, I don't know that it changes really anything about it, because the idea of the channel was always about engagement, really. The channel is leaving this idea of analog, 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 and going to a more nuanced idea of interaction, regardless of what kind of equipment we're using. Well, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You have so many options on what to watch just here on YouTube, so that you spent a little bit of time here. It is really, really special to me. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.